I believe some years ago. Many of you may remember, maybe some of you have, some don't, whatever. Either way, it's a good chazorah and it's a good review. And being that the end of the week, the coming week, we're in the week of Pesach Sheini. Friday is Pesach Sheini Yudalad Be'ir. So therefore, we will discuss an inyan relating to Pesach Sheini. And therefore, we're going to focus on the parasha and parashas Bahaloischa, where there we discuss where we have the parasha of Pesach Sheini. Okay, and without going through the parasha, because the parasha is like straightforward to some degree, let me just read for you a couple of halachas in the Rambam, which is a synopsis of the Gemara. In the Sicht Pesachim, Daf Tzadik Hey Amud Aleph, the Mishnah in page 95a and 95b in the Sicht Pesachim. So the Rambam basically presents all the halachas based on that Mishnah and that Gemara, and of course other halachas, etc. But in general, and the Rambam reads, I didn't record it, I should have, but I didn't, it's not on the sheet, but just as like to some degree an introduction, just to get us to give us some general knowledge about what's going on. The Rambam says, based on the Mishnah, Mabin and the Tosefta, Mabin Pesach Rishon and Pesach Sheini. What's the difference between Pesach Rishon and Pesach Sheini? So, Harishon Osur b'Chametz b'Bal Yiro b'Bal Yimotzei. The first one, you're Osur to have Chametz, to own Chametz. There shouldn't be any Chametz in your possession. Not just you're not allowed to eat Chametz, you can't have any Chametz in your possession. Then in Nishchat ala Chametz, also when you shech the Korban Pesach, when you slaughter the Korban Pesach, you can't own any Chametz. Whoever can't own it, separate. We're not going to the details now. This is in Rambam Hilchos Korban Pesach, Perek Yud Halachat Tezvav. You can't take the Korban Pesach out of its group. Those who are registered, and that's the group who is assigned to eat this Korban Pesach, you can't take it out of that group. V'ton hal b'achiloso, you have to say halal when you eat it, when you consume the Korban Pesach. That's the first Korban Pesach, Pesach Rishon. Mivini mechagiga, you bring a Korban Chagiga along with it. Then there's another halacha about Tumah, and the Rambam continues. Avol Pesach Sheini. But Pesach Sheini, Chametz and Matzah imur babayis, can have Chametz and Matzah in your possession. Then you tone halal b'achiloso, you don't have to say halal whilst you consume the Korban Pesach, because the Gemara says it's only when you say halal, only when it's Yom Tov, Leilis Kadesh Chag, meaning that Pesach Sheini is a weekday. Therefore, you don't say halal when you eat the Korban Pesach, meaning by day you slaughter the Korban Pesach, and by night, Leil Tezvav, the night leading to the 15th, one consumes the Korban Pesach. You can take it out of the home. Then you don't bring in a Korban Chagiga. Then a B'tumah. It's not brought B'tumah because it's only the whole Pesach Sheini is all about those individuals who are tummy in the first Pesach Rishon. So Hashem gives them a second chance in Pesach Sheini. Ushneim Deichem is a Shabbos, both Pesach Rishon and Pesach Sheini is Deichem Shabbos. Utu'unin halal ba'asiyosam, but you have to say halal when you prepare it by the shchita and the etc. etc. V'na'achol and sli. They're both also have to be eaten roasted. The bayis echad al matzah omar. You have to eat it al matzah omar with matzah omar. Then ma'isir in my hand is a din noisar. You can't leave anything over. So you have to make sure to consume that Korban Pesach, depending on the, till Chatzos or till the morning. Then Shevrim Bohenes Etzem, you can't chew the bones, like in Pesach Rishon. And asks the Rambam, why don't we draw parallels? In other words, we identify Pesach Sheini with Pesach Rishon in all respects, in all halachas. So the Nachash Nema, being that the Torah says, you should do it with all the statutes of Pesach Rishon, apply to Pesach Sheini. It's a pasuk in Chumash and Parshas Ba'aloischa. This is basically the Gemara. This addresses this. The Rambam says, by mixas chukas Pesach, because the Torah tells us that not all the rules of Pesach Rishon apply to Pesach Sheini. But how do we know that? Because there are some details. The Torah details certain halachas from Pesach Rishon which apply to Pesach Sheini. And that shows us, Lelamed, to teach us, She'in Shabbal Rishon, that is not identical to the first one, only in those things where the Torah was explicit that they identify and they're identical to Pesach Rishon, otherwise they're not. And what are they? Says the Rambam, the key is, those mitzvahs which are intrinsic to the Korban, that's the Chukas HaPesach in this general term, general rule. Okay, so this is the Rambam throughout, without going to the detail of the Rambam. So we heard more or less what's going on. The Pashtus, and like we said, it says Chametz u'matzah ima babayis. You don't have to remove, you don't have to eradicate, remove the Chametz from one's possession. You can own Chametz. Mashenken and Pesach Rishon, you can't own Chametz, there's a Bal Yiro, Bal Yimotzei. And that's what the Lashon HaMishnah is, and that's the Lashon HaRambam. Chametz u'matzah imay b'bayis. The same apply, Derech Agav, also the Chinuch, and Sefer HaChinuch brings also more or less the Lashon HaRambam, and Sefer HaChinuch and Mitzvah Shin Pei. There too, the Rambam, that's the mitzvah of Shchitas Korban Pesach, or the preparation, all the dinim of Korban Pesach. So there too, he brings more or less the same Lashon. The Lashon HaRambam, Midini HaMitzvah, in the Sefer HaChinuch and Mitzvah Shin Pei. Now, the Minchas Chinuch, now, let me just, no introduction, but just a declaration, or however you want to say it. Tonight, I'm going to present to you a couple of Meforshim, which, like I say, is all out there. If you have an art scroll Rashi, which is quite impressive for a change. Art scroll Rashi on the spot brings already and raises already the issues which Meforshim raise with Rashi. And therefore, we're going to focus on this Rashi and their references in the art scroll Rashi, they bring the Meforshim who raise the issue with the Rashi. Like I say, not just the art scroll, I just want to say, even the art scroll brings it, meaning it's standard stuff, standard Meforshim, standard Torah, which is popular, known, it's all out there. So there's no keys going on here, we're not just whatever, it's all out there, it's published in many different Sforim, these Maramikamis and these references and these sources, which I'm going to mention. We're just going to, so to speak, analyze them to a degree and present them to make some order in what the inyanim are, and then, of course, it's all geared and to prepare ourselves to appreciate what the Rogatchover is mechadish in this inyan. Like I said, also some of them are mekaymes, are also taken from the Lubavitcher Rebbe's Chusay Yagun Alenu's Likutei Sichos, volume 33, in Parshas Ba'aloischa, and like I say, many other svarim. Okay, so the one who actually raises the issues is the Minchas Chinuch and Mitzvah Shin Pei Aleph. The Minchas Chinuch and Mitzvah Shin Pei Aleph says it was always straightforward. It was always poshut by me. It was always simply understood that the mitzvah of Korban Pesach is to eat the Korban Pesach, and you have to eat the gezayis of the Korban Pesach. You have to also, it has to be accompanied by matzah and moror, like it says on matzah shemrorim yechlu and Parshas Ba'aloischa. So therefore, that accompanies the Korban Pesach. You have to eat the gezayis of the Korban Pesach. You have to eat the gezayis matzah. You have to eat the gezayis moror. Also, interestingly, the Sefer HaChinuch and the Minchas Chinuch explain that the matzah has to have all the guidelines of the matzah of the Pesach Rishon, and the moror has all the guidelines of the moror of the Pesach Rishon, meaning that the matzah has to be such shmura matzah, mishas ketzira, from the time of the harvest already. Then you have to already watch that it shouldn't be leavened. The matzah has to be matzah shmura matzah mishas ketzira, and the Aderes takes issue with this point of what the Chinuch and the Minchas Chinuch say, that it has to be dafke shmuros, matzah, mishas, ktsira, identical to the Pesach Rishon. He says, what is the premise for it and what is the basis for it? Maybe it's just sufficient and shouldn't be leavened. It shouldn't be chametz. It has to be matzah. Torah says matzah, al matzah shemar rechlu, but who says it has to be dafke mishas, ktsira? It could be, it suffices that it should be like the menachos. All the menachos in the Beis HaMikdash were matzah. Right, had to be made. All the meal offerings had to be made of matzah, not chametz, but they didn't have to be shmur mishas ktsira dafka. They didn't have to be watched, that it shouldn't become leavened from the time, or it shouldn't come from the time of the harvest. Okay, Al Kol Panim, he just raises the issue when you say for cheshbonos shel mitzvah shin pei and mitzvah shin pei aleph. That's just by the way. I'll endeavor not to go off track in order to be able to cover. Yeah, because it's almost finished. Right, time is almost over. Time is up. Let's go. Okay, Beseda. So Minchas Chinuch says, I was always under the impression, it was poshut by me, you have to eat a gezayis Pesach, a gezayis matzah, gezayis moror, which, again, I'm going off, but this is the regular to the Rogatchover. The Rogatchover claims. The Rogatchover says, he doesn't claim, he says, and it's for real. The Rogatchover Gaon, Sarah Torah says, in a tshuva and in other svarim, in his other svarim, in many of his svarim, he says that the matzah and the moror of the night of Pesach, mainly the matzah he's addressing, is merely a machshir, like peripheral, however you want to call it. So therefore, it doesn't have to have a kezayis. He says anything which is betur machshir, the hagdor is a machshir. There's no mitzvah in essence in the matzah. The mitzvah in essence is what is the Korban Pesach. Torah says it has to be accompanied by the matzah and the moror. He says, being that the matzah is merely a machshir, you don't need a kezayis, even though the Minchas Chinuch takes it for granted that you need a a kezayis of the matzah. And generally, achilas is kezayis, but in this case, says the Rogatchover, a machshi, you don't need a kezayis. And he says it many times in his svarim. We're not going there now, and he discusses it, and possibly we discussed this some time ago also. We're moving. I'll call upon him. So, says there for the Minchas Chinuch, according to the Rambam himself says in Hilchas Chametz Matzah, Perik Ches, when he speaks about the Pesach Rishon, you don't have to eat the Korban Pesach with the matzah and the morah together, mamish, right? You can eat the matzah before, you can eat the matzah after, even though we know we make the koirech, right? So the Rambam says you make a koirech, the matzah and the morah together, but he doesn't mention the Korban Pesach and the koirech and the sandwich. We say Kenas Hill, we mention also the Korban Pesach together with the sandwich of the matzah and the morah, the Pesach Rishon. Most Rishonim say so, but the Rambam had a different text, and therefore the Korban Pesach is not part of the sandwich. But these are that's our Rambam. It's quite clear that when you eat the matzah and the morah and the Korban Pesach, the night and the Pesach Rishon, the first Pesach, you don't have to eat the matzah and the morah together, mamish. You can eat it before the Korban Pesach or after the Korban Pesach. But all kolponim, you're eating them in sequence. You're eating a kezayis matzah, a kezayis morah, and a kezayis of the Korban Pesach before or after. And of course, once you've done that, you will yotze the mitzvah of Korban Pesach Sheini. We're going back to the Korban Pesach Sheini, and it's all over. You're kind of mitzvah. Now, if you have a problem with noiser, the Rambam just told us that there's an isser noiser, and if therefore since you have a big behemoth and there's going to be a shiloh with noiser, so you'll have to eat more than a kezayis of that. So you'll eat more of the roasted meat, so you'll have more of the babi, whatever you want to call it, and therefore you'll eat more of it. But there's no problem. He says, I've always understood that there's never a problem with chametz on Pesach Sheini. There's only a problem with chametz on Pesach Rishon. Pesach Sheini never has a problem with chametz. The Mishnah says, chametz u'matzah imay b'bayis, right? So therefore I understood that the same applies. If you can own chametz, you can also eat chametz the night of Pesach. You can even eat chametz before the Korban Pesach, after the Korban Pesach, or even during, whilst you're eating the Korban Pesach. You haven't yet, so to speak, fulfilled the mitzvah of Korban Pesach. You haven't consumed the kezayis of the Korban Pesach, and you're still in the midst of the fulfillment of the mitzvah. You can eat chametz. There's no issue. Why should there be an issue of eating chametz? He says, if that's the case, I'm really surprised of what I found in a Rashi. Take a look at the Rashi. And here's the Rashi in our sheets. Open up your sheet. Look at the first, the one. It's numbered. It's numbered, isn't it, right? Numbered Aleph. Take a look at the Rashi. We're reading the Rashi. Rashi, Bamidbar Pashas Ba'alois Perites Pasuk Yud. So the Minchas Chinuch quotes the Rashi. Now, if you notice, there's a lengthy discussion in the Rashi about the Derech Rechoika, the Nokot Olav, the dotted Derech Rechoika. We're not going there. And the Sifsei Chachamim and the Dukei Rashi, other Meforshim, will already discuss how that comes in together with the two seems to be two separate messages in the Rashi. It first gives you an analysis and a pirush of the Derech Rechoika, and then it goes on to tell you another statement, which the second statement doesn't seem to connect to the first. They discuss why Rashi puts it together. It's not relevant to us. We're going to continue on the last word on the line, on the top line. It reads as follows. These are the words of Rashi. Rashi says, Pesach Sheini, Matzah v'chametz, chametz imoy bebayis. That's the way it reads. That's the Lashon HaMishnah, Lashon HaRambam, Lashon HaChinuch. Okay, Rashi sees it in the Mishnah. Matzah v'chametz imoy bebayis. You can have matzah and chametz in your home. The Ein Shom Yom Tov. There's no Yom Tov in Pesach Sheini. Yom Tov is in Pesach Rishon, not in Pesach Sheini. There's no Yom Tov. I've noticed somewhere someone quoting this Rashi saying the Ein Shem Yom Tov. I don't recall exactly who. In other words, it has no geder of Yom Tov. It has no name of Yom Tov. It's not Pateras Yom Tov. Okay, however you read it, I believe it's Ein Shom Yom Tov, whatever. But we highlighted in the bold letters the conclusion of Rashi. Rashi says the Ein Isur Chametz ale imoy ba'achilos. There's no Isur Chametz on Pesach Sheini. The only time there's an Isur Chametz is when you're consuming and eating the Korban Pesach. That's what Rashi says. Says the Minchas Chinuch, what's going on here? Why should there be an Isur to eat Chametz? There's no Isur to eat Chametz on Pesach Sheini. Never heard of it, he says. Even when you're fulfilling the mitzvah of Korban Pesach with the matzah and the morah, what's wrong with eating Chametz? You can eat the Chametz before, you can eat Chametz after, you can eat Chametz whilst you're fulfilling the mitzvah. What's going on there? What's up to Rashi? I'm surprised. What's pshat in Rashi? I didn't see any mocker for it. I have no source for it. I have no understanding in it. I don't get it. I don't understand. He concludes with tzorich iyun gadol. Doesn't answer it. Doesn't reconcile it. And he adds, I haven't seen the meforshim sheyagishu bazeh. I haven't seen the meforshim should raise issues with this Rashi. I haven't seen any meforshim who raise issues. Which dafka, in the mind of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, this statement is going to work against them in Minchas Chinuch. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, we're going to go on to mention in a Sikha in Tov Shin Mem Zayin. 1987, it was published then, look at the Sichas, and he then discussed it by the Fabrengen, and we have the talk of his talk, it's published, and etc. It's in the Yiddish and it's in the Hebrew, and he says, what do we need more? If the Minchas Chinuch Kasha is a Rayela Kasha, is like a valid question, isn't it surprising that none of the Meforshei Rashi raise it with Rashi? Ploy. You have so many Meforshei Rashi. He mentions the four major ones, and that is the Rabbi Yoel Mizrahi, and the Sipsei Chachamim, and the Levush Ha'ora, and the Guraryeh. Those are the four major ones. That's the known Pirush, the Harbo, Meforshim, which are quoted in the Oitz and Meforshei Rashi, which was throughout the ages. It was in this one volume. You have all these Pirushim, and then today you have in different Chabashim, tens of Meforshei Rashi. I believe who knows, like it goes into the hundreds, over 100, over 200, up to 200 Meforshei Rashi. Super commentaries for Rashi, so many. No one, I didn't see all of them, but I saw many of them. No one raises the issue of Rashi. No problem with Rashi. Dafke the Minchas Chinuch says he didn't find any Meforshim who raised the issue. But it's a problem. It's a Rechian Gadol. He makes it a problem. Now, I'll call upon him. It's poshut in the eyes of the Minchas Chinuch. It's so poshut in the eyes of the Minchas Chinuch that surely just as you can own Chametz on Pesach Sheini, you can also consume Chametz on Pesach Sheini, even whilst you're fulfilling the mitzvah of Korban Pesach. So certain Meforshim who see that the Minchas Chinuch is so adamant that it's poshut without any proof. He doesn't even approve what he's saying. It's just obvious. And it's poshut, it's a given that you can eat Chametz. So therefore they are forced, so to speak, and allow themselves and want to allow themselves to say a novel pshat in Rashi in order, so to speak, to tame, to neutralize this very mind-boggling question of the Minchas Chinuch. Let me just first bring to your attention another lashon of Rashi. The next, look at Beis. Rashi Masechta Sukkot Daf Mem Zayin with Beis seems to also say the same. The Gemara says as follows. The din is, let me just give you a short introduction, not a lengthy one. There's a din of lina, right? We just learned that, and the Rambam didn't mention lina, and Meforshim we already discussed why he doesn't mention the din of lina. But I'll call upon him, there's a din of lina, and that is when you bring a korban to Beis HaMikdash, there's a halacha that you have to be one, you have to stay overnight in Yerushalayim. Overnight, after the day you brought the korban, so overnight you're supposed to spend in Yerushalayim Beis HaKodesh. So the Gemara says in the Masechta Sukkot Daf Mem Zayin Amud Beis, page 47b. I'm going to read the text. Look at Beis Ois Beis. Minayin la Pesach Sheini. How do we know the Pesach Sheini? And Rashi says, Ha'omer l'tmeim la'asayse b'chedesh ha'sheni, which is addressed to those who are ritually impure, that they can make a korban Pesach Sheini in the second month. She'ein ton lina b'Yerushalayim. The Gemara says, how do we know that they don't need the lina Yerushalayim? Only when the Pesach Rishon is performed. You need to stay overnight in Yerushalayim, but the Pesach Sheini you don't need to. Says the Gemara. It says in the Torah, you'll only leave, you'll go home in the morning. That means you have to stay overnight. And then the pasuk continues, so whatever, you have to eat matzah 6 days. So the Gemara says, being that it says that in the morning you go home, and in sequence to that, the Torah says that you have to keep Pesach for 6-7 days. So that teaches us, and these are the words of Rashi. Pesach Sheini ain't also b'chametz, but Pesach Sheini is not applicable to. Why? Because by Pesach Sheini it's not also in chametz. There's no Isur chametz in Pesach Sheini. Listen, these are the words of Rashi. The only thing we need for Pesach Sheini is matzah for mitzvah, because the Torah says al matzah sumerorim yechlu. So Torah says to perform the mitzvah of Korban Pesach, so you need to have accompanying the Korban Pesach matzah. So the only thing we need is matzah lemitzvah. Rashi concludes, these are the key words which I want to highlight. V'oichel chametz miyad, and immediately you can eat chametz. So bepashtus, if you're taking Rashi at face value, dafka this Rashi will support and follows and coincides with the Rashi which we just learned in Parshas Ba'aloischa. Rashi in Parshas Ba'aloischa says that whilst you're fulfilling the mitzvah of Korban Pesach, you can't eat, there's an Isur chametz. So the Rashi in Masechta Sukkah says that there's a mitzvah to eat matzah, and you eat chametz miyad, meaning there's no Isur chametz. You can eat chametz miyad, immediately. You know what immediately means? After you eat your Korban Pesach. So vaytzechois miyad, immediately after, right? Because Rashi says, ein Isur chametz ela shaton matzah lemitzvah. You need matzah for the mitzvah's Korban Pesach, and va'ochel chametz miyad. It doesn't say va'ochel chametz imo. You don't eat chametz with it. Echel chametz miyad means immediately afterwards you can eat chametz. That's Pashtus Lashon Rashi and Pirush Rashi. Which Lamaisa, this is a diuk, this implication, this diuk in this Lashon Rashi is brought by the Rebbe in Likutei Sichos in volume 33, and it's already beforehand. If the Rebbe saw the Shalos HaTshuvos, I don't know, because I haven't seen it referenced, but in the Shalos HaTshuvos, only Ben Pchoma, it sounds like a little outcast. I mean, it doesn't sound very usual, not a very popular Shalos HaTshuvos, but a very choshev Shalos HaTshuvos. It's called Shalos HaTshuvos, only Ben Pchoma. And he explains in the introduction why he called it Oni Ben Pchoma. Nebuch, his son, died. He had no children. Anyway, so it was published in Yerushalayim, Tov Reish Pei Ches. That means in 1928, it was published in Yerushalayim. Now, this Yid came from Poland, and he was a Rav for 40 years in Poland, in different shtet in Poland, and then he was a Rav for 20 years in different shtet near Lomzhe. Anyway, so he was an elder Rav, and he came to Yerushalayim, and he says, I'm not having any approbations on my Sefer, because what do I need approbations for? I need people to start praising me and saying that I'm a Godel and a Tzaddik and a London. I don't need it, I don't want it. Must have been a Gvaldik Yid. He just says, I'm letting you know, and then this he writes an introduction. Look at all the Gdolei Yisrael I corresponded with, and that is good enough for you to realize that my Sefer is worth looking into and worth learning. And he mamish records the Gvaldik Gdolei Yisrael, the Avnei Nezer, the Teres Chesed, the Chelkas Yoyav, and other Gedolei Yisrael who he corresponded with in Shalos HaTshuvos is Al Kol Panim. He was definitely a great. So he too makes the diak on Rashi. Rashi says, Beichel chametz miyad, you can eat chametz immediately after. So Rashi also seems to follow in the Rashi and the Shas that you don't eat chametz together, which again only will just, on the one hand, it just substantiates our take in Rashi. That's Rashi's opinion, but the same question will apply. What the Minchas Chinuch says, where we get it from, and what's the mocker for it, and no one mentions it, etc. I do want to mention, I would appreciate to mention, it's getting late, but we're moving quick. The Rav Soloveitchik from Boston, in the Rishimas Shiurim on the Sechta Sukkah, he brings gerade this Rashi in Sukkah, and he understands the Rashi the same way, definitely, that Rashi is out to say you can eat chametz only after and not together with the Korban Pesach, but he says, nevertheless, there is a contradiction between the Rashi, Masechta Sukkah, and the Rashi ala Torah. And we'll appreciate what he's saying when we'll soon mention possibly the Pnei Yehoshua. What he's saying is as follows. Basically, the connotation of Rashi in Chumash, Rashi says there's an Isur Chametz imoy ba'achilosai. He's not stressing the mitzvah chiyuvis, he's talking about the shlila. Rashi says there's a prohibition, there's an Isur to eat Chametz with the Korban Pesach. But in the Rashi, in the Shas and Masechta Sukkah, Rashi says, Ton matzah lemitzvah. That's why we don't eat chametz. In other words, Rashi is highlighting the reason why the chametz doesn't come into play is because there's a positive aspect of eating matzah. Meaning, Vibal, there's a positive message of eating matzah. That's why there's no room for the chametz. But there's no message of not eating chametz. But in the Rashi in Chumash seems to say there is an isur chametz. There's a message. The message says don't eat chametz, so to speak. Okay, that's a fine point, but that's a gather for a Rav Soloveitchik from Boston, who was an anikel for Rab Chaim Brisker, that he should make such a diuk, and it's a Taira Hagdora. And I believe it's dependent very much on what we'll continue on discussing in the Pnei Yehoshua. We'll soon see from the Rambam and the Rashi, possibly. Okay, we'll go on. Let's go on. I'll call upon him. So, again, the Shaila of the Minchas Chinuch. So I said, being that it's so poshut in the mind of the Minchas Chinuch that there shouldn't be an issue to consume chametz, and therefore he says, what is the source? And I don't understand Rashi. So that forced some Gedolei Achronim to learn their Rashi different. Now, I'm saying it forced Gedolei Achronim to learn different. That's the Oni Ben Pchoma in Siman Chav Ches, what we just mentioned. In Hin Shalos HaTshuvos, he says, I see the Minchas Chinuch is so poshut in his mind that there shouldn't be an issue chametz to eat. So he says, you know what? I may be forced to learn maybe Rashi different. And I'll try to make Rashi coincide with the mind of the Minchas Chinuch. That's his approach. So he has like an Eidela approach. But then there's an interesting approach in the tone, in other words, the tone of the approach of Rab Zev Yoskevich from Pabinitz, from Poland, in his commentary on Buvur de Sefri, which is, like I said, referenced already in the art scroll Chumash, where in his Pirush on Buvur de Sefri and Pashas Ba'aloischa, he says, what's the Minchas Chinuch getting all excited about? Where did he get such a pshat in Rashi? He doesn't know how to read Rashi, he says. You know, how do you got to read the Rashi? Listen how he reads the Rashi. Let's go back to the Rashi. He says, when Rashi says, Ve'ein isur chametz. Full stop. Comma. Ve'ein isur chametz. There's no isur chametz. You can have chametz even when you eat it. You hear what's going on? Moshe Kapayr. Again, normally, plainly, in the Rashi says that there's no prohibition of consuming chametz, only when is there a prohibition? When you eat the korban Pesach. But he says, what are you talking about? There's no issur to eat chametz with the Pesach. Rashi never said it. Rashi means to say, there ain't issur chametz. There's no issur chametz on Pesach. When you eat the korban Pesach, you can also eat chametz while you're eating it. You can eat chametz with it. Gewaltig. Chai. Pshat. As I said, I'm avoid the Sifri, and he attacks the Minchas Chinuch, and he says it's definite. My pshat is correct. That's surely pshat. He even references the Rashi Masechta Sukkah, and he says Vayin Rashi Besukkah Daf Mem Zayin, and he doesn't make an issue of the Eichel Chametz Miyad. It's okay with him. Basically, yeah, you can eat chametz. It's okay, no problem. But like I say, he's more a bit, so to speak, and he says, I'm forced to say that pshat in Rashi. He concludes not to learn that way in Rashi. He says, no, but it doesn't fit well in Rashi. I'd rather not learn that way in Rashi. So we'll have to try to reconcile the kasha of the Minchas Chinuch. Also, just by the way, another one of the Choshev Sforim is a sefer called Oyel Shloime, which I know was published in Petrikov in Tofresh Peidalad in 1924 in Petrikov. Petrikov is very popular. Rabbi Lau, yeah, Petrikov is also in Petrikov. Okay, I'll call upon him. So there's a sefer Oyel Shloime who was an enkel of the Teferet Shloime from Radomsk. So there too, he brings the Pirush in Rashi Kipshuta, like the Amvur Disafri, not like the Minchas Chinuch. Okay, but I'll call upon him. I want to conclude. I want to continue. So these two references are already found in the Art Scroll Chumash. L'maisa bepoil, most of the Gdolei Achronim, most of the Gdolei Meforshim all learn in Rashi Kipshuta, not like the Amvur Disafri, not like the Oyel Shloime, not like the Onipem Chama wanted to try to learn that way in Rashi. We take Rashi Kipshuta, the way it also seems from Rashi Masechta Sukkah. And B'meila, that's the case. What do we do with the Rashi? What is the mokher for Rashi? And what is the logic for Rashi? And we're continuing on. So therefore, in number Gimel, if you noticed, I referenced the Minchas Chinuch. Look it up. I'm the Sifri on the Sifri Zut to Parshas Ba'aloischa. We're going to Dalet. In Dalet, that's Bamidra Periktes Pasuk Yudalef. That's a pasuk in Parshas Ba'aloischa. It says in the pasuk as follows: B'chodesh Hasheni Barbosa Yom Bein Arbaim Yasu Eisi Al Matzos Umeroyim Yechlu. Torah says on the second month, on the 14th day, Bein Arbaim in the evening. In the late afternoon, Yasu Oisa, you have to make the korban Pesach al matzah simrorim yichlu, and at night you have to eat it al matzah simrorim. Pnei Yeshua's reference to Lekut Sichos, the Art Scroll references to the Pnei Yeshua. Pnei Yeshua's reference to Lekut Sichos, and also on the Art Scroll saying there's no bipkiyas here. Let's read the Pnei. I just want to tell you what the Pnei Yeshua wants to say. Pnei Yeshua has a fascinating Pnei Yeshua, but I don't want to discuss it. It's a pity we can't discuss it. I just want to say in a nutshell what the Pnei Yeshua conveys. Pnei Yeshua conveys, anyway, Tosfos asks, I can't, it's going to take too long. Ashod. Mamash Ashod. I'm going to say it quickly. Tosfos says that when Yidden entered Eretz Yisrael, when were they able to eat from the new grain, from the new harvest? Only after the Korban Omer was brought. Only after Vayochlu me'avur ha'oretz, only on the 16th of Nisan. Only then were they able to eat from the new grain, and that's when they ate the matzah. In other words, when they entered Eretz Yisrael, they couldn't fulfill mitzvahs matzah with chodosh, with the newly grown harvest. Because you have to wait for the 16th, and the 16th is after Pesach. Pesach is on the 15th. Talking about the first Pesach. So Tosfos says, asks a kasha. The Yerushalmi asks a question. Why don't you say Esa dechaloisase? The positive, we have a klal in Shas and Masechta Shabbos in many places, Mila b'Tzoras in many other places. Esa in Masechta Yevamis. Esa dechaloisase. The positive undoes, right, and pushes away. However, there are many different shaylas. Exactly, what is the criteria? How it works? Is tchuya, it's hutra, whatever. But Esa dechaloisase, no question about it, right? So the positive mitzvah of Esa, of eating matzah, should be deicha the lav of not eating chodosh. Not allowed to eat from the new grain until you bring the korban with the new harvest. And the positive mitzvah of eating matzah, so you should be able to use the new harvested grain to make matzah on the 15th, even though the Omer didn't allow the chodosh. Esa dechaloisase. Tosfos answers, you don't say Esa dechaloisase by an Esa shekoidem hadibur. The Esa of eating matzah the night of Pesach is before Matan Torah, right? It was in the night of Pesach in Mitzrayim. Because it's before Matan Torah, therefore you don't say Eser Dechaloisese. So the Pnei Yehoshua has an Eise de Kasha, a Welt's Kasha. We find from Masechta Yevomis that Dafka and Eser, which is mentioned before Matan Torah, substantiates and adds strength and might to the din of Eser Dechaloisese. And from Tosfos it comes out that if it's an Eser Shekoidem Adibur before Matan Torah, it's weaker. So the Pnei Yehoshua has a fascinating deal. And he explains, when does it add strength and might and to say that the Eser should be Deichad Eloisese? When we also have an Eser after Matan Torah. And we also, once we have an Eser after Matan Torah. And then we say Eser Deichad Eloisese. So then if you find an Eser before Matan Torah, Eser Shekoidem Adibur, then it's going to substantiate to say, definitely we'll say Eser Deichad Eloisese, and we can't know any other din from there. That's what the Gemara says in Yevomis. But in the case where the Eser is only found before Matan Torah, it's not found after Matan Torah, there it's weak. So now the Pnei Yehoshua explains, good, let's go to the Eser of Matzah. There's an Eser of Matzah before Matan Torah, that's by Pesach Mitzrayim, right? Pesach Rishon. He says, but isn't there an Eser after Matan Torah in the Torah, where Torah says you have to eat Matzah? It says, Al Matzah Shem Rurim Yechlu by Pesach Sheini. So there's an Eser la'achar adibur by Pesach Sheini, which is after Matan Torah. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says a commandment to say, to eat matzah. It says, al matzah meron yachlu. Well, Nachma, what's even interesting, and before I got to discuss it, when we say matzah zusha no'echlam al shema, what do we say there? Rabbi Gamliel says, he quotes the pasuk al matzah meron yachlu from Pesach Sheini. So all the Mefarshim discuss. Why do we quote the pasuk from Pesach Sheini when we're talking about Pesach Rishon? Take out your Mefarshei HaAgada. And the Rebbe also in his Agada raises the point. We're not going there now. But I'll call upon him. So the Pnei Yehoshua explains as follows. Pnei Yehoshua says, this that it says in the Torah, al matzah merorim yechlu ba Pesach Sheini, you're not learning pshat right. It's not an Eser to eat matzah. The Eser is for the Korban Pesach. And let's take a look. Let's read the words of the Pnei Yehoshua. Let's read. I'm reading all the words with you. The Afagav the B'Pashas Ba'al Yitzchak Sif. That's number hey. The Afagav the B'Pashas Ba'al Yitzchak Sif Pesach Midbar. Al matzah merorim yechlu. Nearly, says the Pnei Yehoshua. The high lav loshin esed the matzah. This is not a language of a positive commandment for matzah. Ela esed the Pesach Sheini. It's an esed for the Korban Pesach, for the meat. Sheyochlu matzah imo. To eat matzah with it. What do we say? Al matzah is umroidim yochluhu. We're talking about a Korban Pesach. That's the main focus. And Torah says that what should accompany the Korban Pesach? Matzah and maror. So the Eser is what? The Eser is on the Pesach or the Eser is on the Matzah? The Eser is not on the Matzah, the Eser is on the Pesach. And the Torah says you should have the Matzah with it. So b'meila, that's not called an Eser of Matzah Shalachar Adibur. It's Eser of Pesach. We're talking about we need a mitzvah Eser of Matzah, not a mitzvah Eser of Korban Pesach. Let's go on. He says, Rambam Zal Lahedye. Rambam says so clearly, Hilchas Korban Pesach, Beriches Halacha Beis, the Ein Ma'akvin Pesach. This, if you don't have matzah and maror by the Pesach Sheini, it's not essential to the Korban Pesach. Ela lemitzvah bi'alma. You get it? The Achilas Pesach lechel matzah imay. You get it? It's the mitzvah bi'alma. The commandment of the Pesach is to eat Korban Pesach. And the Korban Pesach has to have with it something peripheral. What's peripheral? Matzah and maror. But the Torah didn't address eat matzah or eat maror. It's addressing Korban Pesach. The man he says there's no Eser la'achar adibur of matzah. Because Pesach Sheini, that's the way it's interpreted. Okay. That's one way. Then he says, so according to that, when it says in the Torah, al matzah merorim yechlu, right? Does the Torah say eat matzah? No. Torah says eat Pesach and have matzah and maror with it. And that's actually, if you'll take out the Rambam and say for our mitzvahs, in mitzvah nun ches, right? And also in the Lashon HaRambam, which we just read, the Rambam says the mitzvah is to eat the Korban Pesach Sheini. And you should have with it the matzah and the maror. But what is the mitzvah? To eat the Korban Pesach Sheini. That's the mitzvah. Okay. Then he goes on to say, so that's the way we interpret it. Then he says, Ubeperish Rashi bechumish, befurish lahedye, shaloi bo ela leisur achilas chametz im ha-Pesach be-Pesach Sheini. So the Pnei Yehoshua now quotes our Rashi. The Pnei Yehoshua sees, Rashi says, Ve'ein isur chometz ela imoy ba'achilosoi. Says the Pnei Yehoshua, I see Rashi. What is Rashi? took it from what it says, Al Matzah Shemrorim Yechlu. But Rashi differs in the interpretation of that pasuk. The Rambam says, Al Matzah Shemrorim Yechlu, that's a commandment to eat Korban Pesach. And Matzah and Maror should accompany it. Rashi learns, because Rashi says, that there's an Isur of Chametz to eat with the Korban Pesach, says the Pnei Yehoshua. Rashi learned that when the Torah says, Al Matzah Shemrorim Yechlu, it means to say, don't eat Chametz with the Korban Pesach. You get it? That's what he says. It's not a commandment to eat the Korban Pesach. It's not a commandment to eat matzah. The Torah writes it in a positive tone. Eat it with matzah. But what does Torah really mean? When Torah says eat the Korban Pesach with matzah and moror, Torah says matzah and moror. I tell you to eat it with matzah and moror. I mean to say don't eat it with chametz. That's the way the Pnei Yehoshua understands this Rashi. Which according to this Pnei Yehoshua, the way he understands the Rashi, it's clear that Rashi interprets Rashi's source, Rashi's mocker is from the pasuk. Pasuk kipshutai, a pasuk. Al matzah shemrorim yechlu. So the Torah didn't command us to eat matzah, because there's no commandment per se to eat matzah. You see, from the Rambam, there's no commandment per se to eat matzah. The commandment is to eat Korban Pesach. So why does the Torah say eat matzah and eat moror? Torah means don't eat chametz. So there are two ways of understanding this pasuk al matzah shemrorim yechlu. I therefore want to say, by the way, that going back to Rav Soloveitchik's ha'ara in the Rashi, in the Shas, in the Rashi, in the Chumash, so I believe as follows, that the Rashi in the Chumash is just like the Pnei Yehoshua says. The Rashi in the Shas would coincide quite well, I believe, with what the Rambam says in his Sefer HaMitzvahs and in Sefer Yad HaChazak and Hilchos Korban Pesach. I'm not going to go explain myself, but I think it's obvious what I just said. Okay, so according to Pnei Yehoshua, he has no kashas in, he has no tirutz in, it's like straight poshut in the pasuk. We come to a Meshech Chochmah, and the Meshech Chochmah comes already with a bit of a lomdus. The Meshech Chochmah, that's Rameir Simcha from Dvinsk. And he says as follows. Let's read his words. On the pasuk al matzah shemrorim yechlu. Pirush, he touches the Chumash. And now, what caused him to touch the Chumash that way? It's not our business. It's either because he saw the Rashi, but actually he brings the Rashi afterwards. But possibly he on his own touched the Chumash that way. Pirush, sheyechlu oisoi rak im matzah. When the Torah says al matzah shemrorim yechlu, the meaning is you should eat it only in matzah, not in chametz. But he adds, so for a moment, you could explain and think that the Meshech Chochmah is learning like the Pnei Yehoshua understood in the Rashi, but I believe he doesn't actually learn like the Pnei Yehoshua, because he adds a new principle. Lav habo mechlal asay. Lav habo mechlal asay means as follows. Sometimes the Torah says, esa, do so. Sometimes the Torah says, lois esa, don't do so. Then we have a principle of lav habo mechlal asay. Torah says, asay, do so. So it's an asay, a positive. But Torah means mainly not so much the positive, but it means the negative. But there is a positive. So definitely there's a positive according to the Meshech Chochmah. Now, I'm not pushing it. Maybe he learns like the Pnei Yehoshua, I'm not sure. But because I see he says it's lav haba mechlal asay, I would believe he says that when the Torah says al matzah shemrorim yechlu, it's a positive, right? But we know from the positive also a negative. Because whenever there's a positive, we can understand and deduce from that. So the Torah says eat it with matzah. From this is understood, like he says. Torah says eat it with matzah. Yechlo is rak and matzah. But it means rak and matzah and not in chametz. Lav haba mechlal asay. And the rule is lav haba mechlal asay. When you derive and deduce a lav, a negative, from a positive, it has a criteria of an isur. It's called an isur asay. So there's an isur chametz lefizeh. Which if that's the case, so that's what it continues on. V'chein pirush Rashi. That's the way, that's exactly what Rashi says. So he also understood the Meshech Chochmah, understood the Rashi, that there's an Isur Chametz to eat it together with the Korban Pesach. But maybe therefore, he says, where do we know it from? It's a lav haba mechlal asay. And he also then brings the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, v'ne'acholin sli al matzah chulu. The Mishnah says you have to eat it roasted al matzah. So there too, he says, just like it touches the pasuk, he says that's also the message of the Mishnah. The message of the Mishnah, when it says you have to eat it with matzah and moror, it means to say, yeah, with matzah and moror and not with chametz. Lav haba mechlal asay. Now, because he applies the principle of lav haba mechlal asay, I've seen achronim without mentioning names, but it's wrote already in all the different malaktim or whatever, and they say, they take issue with the Rameir Simcha. Lav haba mechlal asay, you generally can say, only when the assay is not legufa. If you need the essay, if the Torah says an essay because you need it, it had to be said. You can't do something in addition. Because you need it for its message. But if it's extra, so then we can understand, we can know the din of lava b'machlal assay. And they say over here, we need it legufay. It has to tell you the message, you eat it with matzah. So therefore, how can the Rameir Simcha say it's lava b'machlal assay? So firstly, I want to say that that's lav dafka. True, many Rishonim and Achronim learn that way. But there are Rishonim and Achronim who learn not that way. They say even when it's not extra, and even when it's an essay, it's a positive, you can know a lava b'machlal assay even from a positive. Exactly what the shit of Rameir Simcha is in general, I'm unsure. But that's a shvache kasha, I would believe. I also want to say, even though when he says sheyechlo oiser rak in matzah, even though he says it's lava b'machlal assay, from the Rambam you see it's not an assay. It's a mitzvah b'alma. You get it? Even you take a look at the Rambam. The Rambam said the real essays need the korban pesach. The almatam rechlulu is a peripheral thing, right? It's like an extra. So maybe that's why Rabbi Meir Simcha allows himself to say what he says. Let's go on in the meantime. Just derech hagav, you'll find the facts are that I've seen already. The language the Rebbe himself references a Sefer Torah from the Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek Melubavitch, in his Sefer Torah, who also seems to quote the pasuk and say you have to, it's dafka al matzah samrodim, meaning that there's no chametz. It would seem that's what he wants to say. The Rebbe himself in Lekutei Sichos volume 8 in Parshas Ba'aloischa, he also quotes the pasuk seem to say the same thing. Val derazeh the cheshbon shel mitzvah, the aderes in his cheshbon shel mitzvah also says, he says, just like how do you know that you can't eat the korban pesach by day, because it says you should eat the korban pesach by night. So even though it's a mitzvah to eat it at night, and that's what the Torah has to tell you, but from there we understand that you cannot eat it by day, earlier before the night. So but maybe the same way we know that you can't eat it with chametz, because the Torah says you have to eat it with matzah. From there it's understood that you can't eat it with chametz. So the cheshbon shel mitzvah is also quite happy to say it. If it means mamash what the Meshech Chochmah is saying, I'm unsure. But you already see that many of these meforshim, the Torah, well, there was the Aderes, seem to want to say this kind of pshat. Either they mean like the Pnei Yehoshua says, or they mean what the Meshech Chochmah says, etc. We're moving on. We have to go. It's very late. Oh boy. He then brings a Tosefta. In the Tosefta is an interesting Tosefta. The Tosefta says as follows: Pesach Rishon no yikol shiva, Pesach Sheini no yigem echad. The Tosefta adds on what the Mishnah says, right? The Mishnah says the differences between Pesach Rishon and Pesach Sheini. As we mentioned, some of them recorded from the Rambam. The Tosefta in Perek Ches of Masechta Pesachim adds many other differences. And one difference is as follows: it says no yikol shiva. Pesach Rishon is for 7 days. Pesach Sheini is 1 day. So listen how the Rabbi Meir Simcha teaches that, because really it's problematic. What does it mean? Definitely Pesach Rishon is not Noye Kol Shiva. We're talking about the Korban Pesach, right? So there's no Korban Pesach for 7 days. There's a Korban Pesach for the first day, the first night. So what does Noye Kol Shiva mean? It means that there's an Isur Chametz for 7 days. We have to say that means that, right? Like the Gemara says the same thing in relation to the Pesach Mitzrayim, that same shot. Okay, let's go. And then, so that's what he says. Ukamoi, says the Rameir Simcha, the whole Shiva al-Isur Chametz koi, just like the Tosefta when it says it's no Yikol Shiva. We're of course not talking about the Korban Pesach. We're talking about the Isur Chametz. So the Meila also came Yom Echad, who? So also the same applies when it says Yom Echad, right? It says Yom Echad. You get it? That Pesach Sheni is no Yom Echad. Who? It means She'ein Nechal Im Chametz. That you can't eat it with the Chametz. That's not this no Yom Echad. You can't eat it with the Pesach. In other words, you can't eat the Korban Pesach with the Chametz. Meaning Chametz is no Yom Echad by Pesach Sheni. Where's the Pesach no Yom Echad by the Pesach Sheni? Yeah, what Rashi means. What Rashi says. You can't eat Chametz with the Pesach Sheini, with the Korban Pesach. And it concludes with Poshut. Poshut? Oh, Poshut. See what's Poshut in the mind of the Meshech Chochmah? It's not so Poshut in the minds of others. But Al Kol Panim, I want to just bring to your attention as follows: that the Lashon of the, if you see very clearly, the Lashon of the Tosefta is Yom Echad. That the Pesach, that Pesach Sheni Noig Yom Echad. Yom Echad. Yom Echad means a full day, doesn't it? So what do you want to say? There's an Isur Chametz. According to the Meshech Chochmah, it means that you can't eat Chametz the day of Pesach Sheni, but he concludes it means you shouldn't eat the Korban Pesach with the Chametz, right? But maybe it means you shouldn't eat Chametz all the 24 hours of Pesach Sheni. And the fact is, let me just bring to your attention that there are Svarim, Deli Achronim from Turkey, from Constantinople, etc. And I'll just mention a few of them, and that is in Sefer Ner Yitzchak, which was published by Machona Avat Shalom or Rechov Bardichev, I'm not going to tell you, off off the clothes. They're locked up now. They're locked up off Meir Shorim. Excuse me. I think they're locked up. That's one of the areas they're locked up. Okay, yeah, not enough community. They were locked up. I don't know who should be locked up. I'm sorry. They're tired of Eden. So there, Avat Shalom published it, a very choshev sefer from one of the Gedolei Achronim from Constantinople. We didn't know of him, but it's on Rambam. Meir Yitzchak, a choshev sefer. So he brings the Lashon of the Ramban, because you see right after it brings number Zayin, it says V'chein Pesach Sheini, the Lashon of the Ramban in Kapitel Tes Pasuk Gimel in Parshas Ba'aloischa, he says Chukosav and B'shpotav and Matzav v'chametz imod b'bayis, and the Lashon of the Ramban is also like the Tosefta Ve'en Noeg Elo Yom Echad. So he brings two definitions in the Yom Echad. He wants to say that as a machlokes between Rashi and the Ramban. Rashi learns that the Isur Chametz, to consume Chametz, is only b'shas achilas HaPesach. But the Ramban, who says Ve'en Noeg Elo Yom Echad, there's, according to the Ramban, possibly the Isur of achilas Chametz is dafka more than just whilst you consume the Korban Pesach, but even throughout the day, because it says Yom Echad. That's the way he wants to say in the Sefer Ner Yitzchak. But in the Sefer Midos Toivois, which is also from a Godel from Kushta, from Constantinople, which was published by Yad Harav Nissim, a very choshev pirush on the Mechilta. It's called Midos Toivis. Alle Yidden sollen haben Midos Toivis. It's a good sefer. So Midos Toivis, there he brings this lotion of the Tosefta, and it says Yom Echad, and he says, I'd rather learn Pshat of this Tosefta Yom Echad, that it means like Rashi says, like the Rabbi Simcha says. Of course, they lived before my Rabbi Simcha and Afkamina, but you see already that these Achronim dealt with and addressed this lotion of Tosefta. Ba'al derech zeh, Professor Shaul Lieberman, Rav Shaul Lieberman, says in his Tosefta Kipshuta, he references the Meshech Chochma on this Tosefta, and he wants to say in the Ramban, when it says Yom Echad, he doesn't mean Yom Echad, it's Laila Echad. You see what's going on? Some say Yom Echad means Mamash Yom Echad, some say Yom Echad means what Rashi says during the night, and Rav Shaul Lieberman says that's what Ramban means, Yom Echad is Laila Echad, tut sich a ganze Geschäft. Interesting, Chazon Yecheskel, Rav Chatzkel Abramsky, in his commentary on the Tosefta, says it's a doichik. Maybe he didn't see the Meshech Chochma, and if he would have seen it, maybe he wouldn't say it. But he says it's a doichik, it's a gekvetched, to say that when it says in the Tosefta Yom Echad, it should mean what Rashi means, that you can't eat chametz whilst you're consuming the thing. Also, the Nitziv Mevaloshin in Parshas Ba'aloischa has his take on the Lashon of the Ramban. If you want to look in the Nitziv, in the Emek Nitziv in Parshas Ba'aloischa, you'll see a discussion there on this. He says maybe Yom Echad is talking about Yom Tif, but of course it can't be no Yom Tif. There's no Isur Yom Tif on Pesach Sheini. So therefore he says definitely we're talking about Chametz, but it says Yom Echad. It doesn't say do like Rashi says. So he ends off with the Tzorech Iyun, etc. Okay, so I'll call upon him. You see that, we have at least a basis. There's room to argue that the mocker for Rashi is this Tosefta. Now, exactly what is the mocker for the Tosefta? We're going back to those psukim. It could be that everything is understood from the pasuk, the way the Yehoshua touched the pasuk, or the way the Meshech Chochma touched the pasuk, and that is like it says Al Matzah Shemererim Yechlu. We're not going back. Now let's go back to the Mishnah. It says in the Mishnah in Talmud Bavli, the Mishnah in Daf Tzadikei and Masechet Pesachim. It's very late. It's the Mishnah says Mabed Pesach Rishon L'Sheni, that the Rishon is also B'Bal Yerov B'Al Yimatzi, V'Hasheni Chametz Umatzi Imei B'Bayis. Right, so that's the Lashon. Hasheni, it's Imei B'Bayis. So the Achronim already, based on this Lashon, right? The Mishnah says that Chametz Umatzi Imei B'Bayis. Where is that? You see, that's number. What number was that? That's number 8. Correct? Ches. It says the Chametz Umatzi Imei B'Bayis. So let me just bring to your attention, because they say the Rashi says Imei B'Bayis. So therefore, Achronim Amedayik. The Rebbe look at the Sichas in volume 33, Val Derech Zeh. Many other Svarim, the Medaik and the Lashon HaMishnah, that Rashi, Poshet, look at the Mishnah. And that's where we're going on to say that we see from the Mishnah and the Gemara. The Rebbe in number 9 references the Gemara. The Rebbe says the mocker for the words of Rashi is from the Masechet Pesachim of Tzadikei, Amud Aleph and Amud Beis. So he doesn't refer to the Mishnah because he himself explains what he meant in his talk. It's a lengthy discussion. Not so lengthy, but I'll go upon him. First, Achronim, the Rebbe himself in his notes, in the glosses, and also other Achronim, say, where it says, the Lashon of the Mishnah, so they say, Imay Babois, it's only Imay Babois with him in his possession, but Lav Dafke Imay Ba'achilosoi. Lav Dafke Imay Ba'achilosoi. He can only have it with him, but he can't have it whilst he's consuming the matzah. And this dig was already found, like I said, also in Shuvas Mishnah Sochir, from the Bavus to Shabbos Shuvas Mishnah Sochir. Everybody knows of him in Erechaim, Sim Kufel Amid Beis, and also in Shuvas Arfakas, the Anya, and also in Shuvas Ani Ben B'chama. Also, like I said, this Lashon is brought in the Rambam, and it's also brought in the Sefer HaChinuch. I just want to go back a moment. I'm sorry that even though we've mentioned from the Pnei Yehoshua that the mitzvah is I'm sorry that I didn't say it a moment ago, that the mitzvah was, the stress is on the Korban Pesach, not on the matzah and the moror, dafke in the Sefer HaChinuch, in mitzvah Shin Pei. He learns, and the Minchas Chinuch understands that way in the Sefer HaChinuch. According to the Sefer HaChinuch, the mitzvah is lav dafke just for the matzah. According to the Sefer HaChinuch, the mitzvah is that the Torah is actually addressing the matzah. And therefore he says, if someone eats the Korban Pesach and does not eat the matzah and the moror, he is mevatel a mitzvah sesa. Says the Sefer HaChinuch, a mitzvah Shin Pei. Shin Pei Aleph, Shin Pei Aleph. Which B'meila the Minchas Chinuch says, what's going on here? Since when is al matzah semerim yechlu a mitzvah to eat matzah? The mitzvah is to eat Korban Pesach. And we have to have a peripheral thing to eat it with matzah and moror. But for the Sefer HaChinuch, it doesn't sound that way. I just want to say, you see, the way the Sefer HaChinuch understands this mitzvah, which he seems to deviate from the Rambam, even though he goes generally in Shittas Rambam. But it's clear from the Minchas Chinuch, the way he understands the Sefer HaChinuch. Also, the Aderes and the Chadshven Shalom understands the Sefer HaChinuch that way. The Pnei Yehoshua's Pshat, which he says that there's no Eser Shalachar Adibur on matzah, follows very well for the Rambam, follows very well for the Rashi, but may not follow very well for the Sefer HaChinuch. And if it doesn't follow well for the Sefer HaChinuch, maybe that's why the Minchas Chinuch had his kasha. Because he can't accept the pshat of the Pnei Yehoshua. Because he sees the Sefer HaChinuch learns that there is a mitzvah per se for matzah and moror. Was ich sage, that man gut allein trachten, and therefore maybe that's his mocker. That's why he can't appreciate the terrors of the Pnei Yehoshua. And maybe for the same reason he can't either appreciate the terrors of the Meshech Chochmah. So it's something to think about. Even though the Sefer HaChinuch in mitzvah Shin Pei, Dafka brings the Loshen of the Ramban. He says Mefurish, and the Loshen of the Tosefta, V'Hasheni ein noyeg ele yoyim echad. He says it's noyeg yoyim echad. What are we talking about? The Sheni is noyeg yoyim echad. It's not, you can't eat a Korban Pesach all day. It's only at night. Does he mean that? Not so poshut, right? Does he mean matzah? You don't have to eat matzah. It's not a yoyim echad. So the only thing it can relate to, like the Pesach Chochmah says, is talking about the Chametz. Possibly, maybe the Sefer HaChinuch, the Minchas Chinuch learned the Loshen of the Chinuch, that it's referring not to Chametz, it's referring to Matzah, referring to the Korban Pesach. So he had a different way of understanding this Loshen of Yom Echad. I just want to continue, and we have to move. I'm sorry. I'll say it in a nutshell. So, Sama Medag in the Lashon HaMishnah. The Rebbe look at the Sikha says, the Mocker is a Gemara in Pesach Psachim that Tzadikei Amadal and Amad Beis. Now, this Gemara is the obvious Gemara where the Gemara discusses the distinctions, the differences between Pesach Rishon and Pesach Sheini. The Rebbe explains what he means on Amud Aleph and what he means on Amud Beis. There's a raya from the Gemara in Amud Aleph, there's a raya from the Gemara in Amud Beis. Let me just bring to your attention that, so in the footsteps, in other words, in the same approach, the Chametz Yisrael Amer Dom Plotsky, the Baal Klei Ala Torah, in his Pirush Chametz Yisrael on the Minyan HaMitzvahs, in Mitzvah Kuf Chav Dalid, also has a way of learning and proving Rashi from. It's saying that Rashi deduced it and took it out from the Gemara in Masechta Pesachim that Tzadikei Amud Beis. Okay, Val Derech Zeh. In the Sefer of Farkasta Da'anya, Shadas HaShivas of Farkasta Da'anya, Val Derech Zeh, in the Shadas HaShivas Mishnah Socher, claim that Rashi also took it, and also from a sefer called Shiori Mincha from Harav Steger, from Agrois, one of the Gaonim in Galicia, in Agrois and Sefer HaChinuch and Minchas Chinuch. They all want to say that Rashi definitely took it from the Gemara, and and therefore each one in their way, each one has a different kvetch and a different diak or a different proof how it's obvious. And I'm not going to quote it because I'm very late. I want to go to the Rogatchover because the farthest we're going to be, we can't go much over time. It's a couple of minutes over time. And we're going straight to the Rogatchover. Therefore, I'm sorry, and the Rebbe will be meichel me. I hope he will. Although the Achronim will be meichel me, and we're not explaining and elaborating what the raya is from Pesach Psachim. But think of what the Rebbe says, when I spoke about the Shaila on Rashi, and I said the raya is from Pesach Psachim, hat mir geschickt Pulpulim, he said. People sent me in Setlach with Pulpulim for the Minchas Chinuch. He says, when I'm telling you it's a Mefurish Gemara, by me it's a Pell on the Minchas Chinuch. People are going to have to know for the Minchas Chinuch. After I'll tell you what the Mocker is from Pesach Psachim, Tzadik Aleph, Tzadikei Amadal and Amad Beis, which is Poshet the Pshat in the Gemara. And like I say, all the other Achronim also prove it through the different points of Tzadikei Aleph and Amad Beis. So if so, says the Rebbe, yeah, it's a mitzvah to be miyashiv the kasha of the Minchas Chinuch. Why? How did he learn the Gemara? In other words, if you have an option to be miyashiv the Rashi, or the Minchas Chinuch, says the Rebbe, I'll be miyashiv the Rashi. But because the Minchas Chinuch is a Choshev Sefer and it's worked la'alocha, therefore you have to also be Miyasher the Minchas Chinuch. So we're not going to do that tonight. And therefore, like I say, I'm sorry, I can't share it with you now. We're moving on to the Rogatchover. The Rogatchover has poshed something mamish novel. And it's mamish niflo. Now, where is it coming from? Let me let you know that this Rogatchover is not published in his Sforim. It's poshed not around. It's poshed not around. El Mazoli, I must find it. Excuse me. Give me a minute, yeah? I had it put aside. Just give me a second. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay, it's all good. El Mazoli. Two things. There's a Shailas Atshuvas Rishmei Sha'ela. That is a Shailas Atshuvas from a Yid who was a Gadol B'Yisrael. His name was a Gaon, a Tzaddik. He was the Av Bezin of Velichke. Velichke. You know where Velichke is? You don't. Can't help you. But you'll ask Rav Opman, he'll tell you where Velichke is. Okay. Ended. So his name was Pinchas Arya Leibish Frankel to Umim, and he was the Av Bezin of Velichke. Now, in this Shailas Atshuvas Rishmei Shaila, which was published by the Yitzhabina Yeshiva in Yerushalayim, Tov Nun Dalet, it's a marvelous Shailas Atshuvas. There you have tens of Shailas of this Gadol who corresponds with the Rogatchover Gaon and asks him Shailas one after another. But it doesn't just ask him Shailas. He muches him. You know what means muching? If it's mind, mitchen, I mitchete. And says, mitches the Rogatchover. He says, you didn't answer me. You told me you're going to answer me. You didn't answer me. And when he already answers him, he says, I don't know what you're talking about. Explain it to me. And so I don't know exactly what their relationship was all about. But you find novel things there. Now, the Pele is as follows. What disturbs me is as follows. This Shaila on the Rashi, so in Shailas Atshuvas Rishmei Shaila, Simchavov, this Yid, this Gadol asks the Rogatchover, I'm asking you, Rogatchover, Bakashosi Shtucha Lahor, Einai, to enlighten me, Mokr LeDivrei Rashi, what's the source for Rashi that by Pesach Sheini and Allah eat Chametz with the Korban Pesach? Now, I look in Siman Chav Zayin, listen to what he says. He says, what you, great Rogatchover Shlitas, brought me a mocker for Rashi that the Pesach Sheini you can't eat with Chametz, please explain to me what you mean. But unfortunately, we don't have the tshuva of the Rogatchover, it's not there. So if there was a tshuva written, and it could be with time, they'll find it. There must be a tshuva out there, which definitely the Rogatchover penned. Unfortunately, I don't find it in Shailas Atshuvas Rishmei Shaila. But guess what? I saw referenced a country is called, a kovitz called Kerem Shloime. Kerem Shloime is a very choshev kovitz given out by Bobov. Bobov, Chsidei Bobov and Boropak, right? Bobov. They have a Bavusta kovitz, I don't know if it still comes out today, it's called Kerem Shloime. So my Bobover cousin years ago sent me, I asked him for a copy of the tshuva, he got a hold of it with the administration of Kerem Shloime, and got me a hold of the tshuva there's a tshuva from the Rogatchover about it, and it says clearly what the pshat is. Murder pshat. But you don't have the words of the Rogatchover. You have it in the words of the Yid who writes a letter to the Rogatchover. Who's the Yid? The Yid was the Av Bezin of Otvotsk. Otvotsk in Poland. I'm sure many of you heard of the city of Otvotsk in Poland. That was, I believe that was like a countryside of Warsaw. And everybody, I know, Baruch Hashem, I was Zoiche to learn many, Baruch Hashem, very many. I believe like more than 2 handfuls, right? Of all my Magidei Shiurim, my Malamdim, and my Rosh Yeshivas who learned in Tomchei Tmimim in Otvotsk. The Yeshivas Tomchei Tmimim started off, it was established after it left Russia, and it was established in Riga, and then it went to Warsaw in the 1930s, in the early 1930s, and then later on in the 1920s. In the mid-1920s, then in the 1930s, it was established in Warsaw and Warsaw. And if you know, wie heißt der dort, Erdenis, you remember Erdenis? Erdenis, Schweimer told me he learned in Tomchei Tmimim in Warsaw. He learned it was the best yeshiva in Warsaw, because they had the most choshev Rosh Yeshivas, etc. Then it transferred from Warsaw to Otvotsk. That's where the yeshiva was. And like I say, I learned many of my Magidei Shiurim went from Otvotsk. And you even sit and learn that the different ideas of that was one of the cheshivs to yeshivas in Poland. I'll call upon it. So there was an Av Bezdin in Otvotsk. Would you believe it? There was an Av Bezdin. What is surprising to me is that Dafke, I would expect that there was some correspondence with the Friedrich Lubavitcher Rebbe, who was the dean of the yeshiva at the time. He wasn't the Rosh Yeshiva, he was the dean, he was the Rebbe who established the yeshiva in Otvotsk, that there should be correspondence with that of Bezdin. I don't see any correspondence in the correspondence published, but nevertheless, it is recorded that on the luach, on the calendar, which was published from the yeshivas in the late 1930s and 1937 to 1939, he is on the Anhola, he is on the administration. He's one of the Rabbonim of the administration of the yeshiva, the Av Bezdin of Atvatsk. That Bezdin of Atvatsk was a big guy, and his name was Rabbi Reuven Zeman, and he wrote a sefer. It showed us a Chuvas Yechi Reuven. He was a big London. I saw a copy of the Yechi Reuven, and you see he's a big London, a big Mefalpel, a big Gaon, and he may have been a Gerah Chassid, because I see he brings a lot of stuff from the Gerah Rebbes, etc., whatever. I'll call upon him. So he writes to the Rogatchover Gaon as follows, and this letter was penned in 1935. The Rogatchover Gaon was nifter in 90 years, so you're going to give me 10 to 15 minutes, Mensch, I'm going to go very fast. Yeah, because no, it's only an hour. No, I should stop now? Finish? 10 minutes.
No, the president is not here. You can keep on going as long as
No, I'm doing 10 minutes. You must. It's a Rogatchover Gaon. Tatas.
That's it.
Well, it's a murder, and you got to hear what the Rogatchover Gaon says. Now, where does he know about it? So the Bezdin of Atvatsk says, I saw a tshuva, what you write to my son. The Bezdin of Atvatsk son was a London, and he corresponded with the Rogatchover. And this son must have asked the Rogatchover what's pshat. And I saw, says this Bezdin, I saw what you wrote to my son. And listen, he records what he wrote. And that's the only source I have till today. If someone can find some other sources, Yivaldik, but I'll call upon him. In the meantime, that's the only mocker for this Rogatchover to say pshat in this Rashi. What's the source? In other words, if the Rogatchover has to say what he says, it's not so poshut. We said before that certain achronim, and the Rebbe says that it's so poshut and obvious in Masechta Pesachim. No, from the Rogatchover's Haggadah, it's not so poshut. Listen to what the Rogatchover says. I'm going to embellish it a bit. Based on the Rogatchover says some of this criteria, which he says in this tshuva in relation to this Rashi, he says it in his Sforim. He discusses it in his Sforim. He has a sefer Matnes and Hilchas Matnes Aniyim and Tzapnes Panech. He has a sefer called Madura Tinyana, which he discusses it also. He has a sefer called Sefer Hashlama, which he discusses it also. But there he doesn't seem to address this Rashi. Listen to what he says. Let me just introduce you in general some things. 10, 15 minutes. Yes, good. It's smooth. That is, we find in the Shas, right? The Gemara says in Masechtas Zvachim, Im ochel te'ochel bayemahu. It says ochel te'ochel, right? It says ba'achilas. It's talking about two achilas. There's achilas mizbeach and achilas adam, right? We know there's achila. In other words, the haktorah, whatever is consumed on the mizbeach, is also begeder achila. We once discussed it about the nisach hayayim, the nisach hamayim, that the nisachim is like this food, the karbonis is like the food of the carbon. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't need the food like the Sefer HaChinuch says, but nevertheless it's begeder achila. It's called achilas mizbeach. The Gemara calls it achilas mizbeach based on psukim. Well, there's achilas adam. There's achilas adam is the achilas koyanim. The koyanim eat part of the carbon. Well, there is the adam eats part of the carbon, etc., etc. So there's achila, so we see, and they're equated. And the Gemara, if you take out a Gemara, Masechtas Zvachim, Daf Lamed Aleph, Amud Aleph, and in the Tosfos there, you see very clearly that there is an inyan of achilas mizbech and achilas adam, and there are different psukim proving it. And Tosfos discusses why this pasuk is brought in, not a different pasuk, that where the fire consumes the carbon, it's begeder achila. Okay. Now listen, but the Rogatchover takes out a different gather. The Rogatchover says we find by carbon Pesach a unique thing. It's something novel which is not found by other carbonis. And that is that generally there's a carbon. You have to shecht it, and you have to do all the avoidance with the carbon, and then the koyanim eat it, and the bailam is kaprin, right? And then you consume it. But the separate avoidance, separate inyanim, separate mitzvahs. There's a halacha by carbon Pesach that in order for one to be able to be registered on carbon Pesach, you have to be a royal achila. In other words, b'shas the registration, b'shas the minui for the carbon Pesach, the din is there has to be a royal lecher. The menuyim, those who are registered, have to be royal lechel. They have to be suitable to eat the kezayis of that carbon Pesach. But if they're cholim, all ill, or skainim, elderly, or kids, etc., and they can't consume a kezayis of the carbon Pesach, so then it's not regarded as if they participate in the carbon Pesach. So even b'shas hasiyas carbon, even before the time of eating, consumption of the carbon kicks in, already has to be royal achila. Now, from the Rogatchover, everything is a hagdara, everything is a criteria. Rogatchover sees much deeper than us, right? So the Rogatchover, based on that, again, he doesn't elaborate, but I'm taking this out from the tshuva. In other words, it seems to be based on this chazal, on this halacha, in other words, that we equate the achila with the asiyas hakarbon. So therefore, they have the same hagdara, they have the same geder, they have the same criteria, they have the same din. So listen to what the Rogatchover says. Therefore, the Achilas Pesach is begeder Torah. Torah. In other words, we said that's not strange to us, because there's Achilas Mizbeach, which is the Torah of the Korban, the Akrov of the Korban, right? You have to bring and be maktarit on the Mizbeach. So there's Achilas Mizbeach. It's begeder Achila. Well, there's an Achilas Adam. But L'maisa B'Poil, when you bring it on the Mizbeach, it's Torah. It's bringing the Korban. But now that we see that b'shas asiyas hakorban, you have to be royal echol. The mainly tainis, I mean, at least from the way it's presented in this tshuva, that tells us that the criteria is the same, and therefore the consumption of the korban when you eat it al b'tur Pesach, when the person is eating it, the gather, the criteria of it is not so much eating, like we know eating, what eating with his guidelines of what eating is, but it has guidelines of a haktorah. Now, I want to just bring to your attention as follows. We know the fact is as follows. The fact is that, and this is discussed, Rabbi Chaim Briskin, and the stencil talks about it, and the Rogatchover speaks about it extensively, that in the consumption of the Korban Pesach, there are two dinim. Zwei dinim. Ein din is Achilas Kochim, and ein din is Achilas Pesach. And Achilas Kochim have its criteria and halachas. Achilas Pesach has its criteria and its halachas and many guidelines. And there are many new halachas which relate to Korban Pesach, which we know very well from Masechet Pesachim, and the halachas of Hilchas Korban Pesach, which are non-applicable to Hilchas Achilas Kochim. But the fact is, if he follows all the rules and regulations, and he consumes and he eats the Korban Pesach, he's fulfilling, so to speak. He's now being mekayim two dinim. There's a din of Achilas Kochim, there's a din of Achilas Pesach. Now the Rogatchover claims as follows, that Achilas Pesach, even though it's called Achila, and every Achila has guidelines, right? Like we're going to come in a moment. We know Achila, in order for something to be regarded as Achila, you have to eat a kezayis. Ain't Achila pochas mikazayis. And we know to fulfill the mitzvah of Achilas Kochim, you have to eat a kezayis, you have to eat an aleph size. Anything less than an aleph size lacks in the fulfillment of the mitzvah. Therefore, the Rogatchover references the Tosfos in Tosfos Yishonim in Masechta Yuma Daf Lamed Tes Amud Aleph, where it says that they used to get a section of the lechem aponim. It was the size of a bean. And Tosfos discusses how are they mekayim the mitzvah. It was the size of a bean. It's less than an olive. So take a look at the Tosfos, and it's not so pashut. And there's a Chabad Beis Halevi who wants to claim, based on this Tosfos Yishonim, that there could be a kiyum mitzvah Achilas Kochim even when it's less than a kezayis. Because the mitzvah is that it should be consumed. If the mitzvah is to eat, you have to have correct guidelines of eating. And that means a kezayis. But if the mitzvah is that the korban should be consumed, you get it, the nifal, so therefore the consumption, even if you eat less, with your participation of eating less, is also fulfillment of this mitzvah. That's a Beis Halevi in the Tosfos, but the Rogatchover references this Tosfos to show that we see their Gdorim in Achila in relation to Kochim, etc., etc. Oh, I'm not so sure exactly what the Rogatchover meant, but he references this Tosfos. Let's move on. But let's go back closer to home now. So, B'mela the Rogatchover time is as follows. When you eat the Korban Pesach, mitzad mitzvahs Achilas Kochim, it has halachas of Achila. Mitzad mitzvahs Achilas Pesach, it has a mitzvahs dinim of Haktorah. Right? Because that's unique halachas which apply to Korban Pesach. L'may nafkimine, the nafkimine will be, he brings a Gemara in Sukkah, daf mem beis amud beis, and the Rogatchover says this in many places, that it's obvious from the Masechta Sukkah daf mem beis amud beis, 42b, that the din, that you have to eat a kezayis, and every time you fulfill the mitzvah with a kezayis, or you're even avera with a kezayis, right? It has to be bichdei achilas pras. It has to be within a specific time frame, right? Whatever, in minutes, it's 4 minutes, 6 minutes, 9 minutes, whatever the shiurim are, right? Many different shiurim in the achronim, but I'll call upon him, whatever the achilas pras means, let's not go there now. But just the concept. So why? Like Rashi says, because if it doesn't, it's halacha lo mishmisine, says Rashi. Why? Because if it's not b'chdei achilas pras, it's not within that time frame that you consume that kezayis. So then it's like as if you ate a half today and half tomorrow, so they don't join up. And they're not connected, and therefore you haven't eaten the kezayis. So therefore it has to be within that time frame. Says the Rogatchover, I have a raya. It's muchach, it's obvious from Masechta Sukkah, daf mem beis amud beis, that the achilas kezayis of a Pesach, what you consume roasted, doesn't have to be consumed b'chdei achilas pras. You yaitz even, it's not b'chdei achilas pras. We shall appoil in a sefer, Bavusta sefer, a very choshev sefer called Koil Sefer. Did you hear of it? I don't know. But I have it, I'll show you. I have it right here in front of my face. I once bought this in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, Manhattan, Brooklyn, you know, not far from Manhattan. It's called Kfutzes Meforshei HaMishnah, very choshev set, 6 volumes. So it has the Pirush of the Koil Sofer, and he's from a Gewaldige Mechaber. He's the Machne Chaim. He was a Gaon from Pest. He was an Av Bezdin of Pest. And they used to say, it's known in the Olam HaYeshivas, that he's the Rab Chaim Brisker. His name is Chaim. Rab Chaim Sofer. He's the Rab Chaim Brisker of Hungary. Because he says a lot of going dike gewaltige tiefe in yonim. I'll talk about in his spiritual commentary, in his commentary on the Mishnayos, in Pesach Sheini, which is also quoted in a pirush in a sefer called Likutei Sefer from a different sefer, someone else in the later generation. And he quotes in the mitzvah of Korban Pesach. He quotes the sefer called Sefer. He says that it would seem that you need to be, even by the Korban Pesach, it would need to be royu. You have to be at least suitable, that you should be able to eat it with the achilas pras. And if the choilo or the zaken or the child won't be able, he has to at least be able, even if he doesn't, but at least if he's able to eat it within that time frame, it's fine, if not. But from the Rogatchover, it's clear that you don't need to. Exactly what's the proof? He says it's mamish obvious from that Gemara, you don't need it. That's what the Rogatchover says. We'll take out a Gemara and you'll tell me exactly how it's obvious. I have a way of learning that Gemara, but I don't know why it's so obvious, but the Rogatchover sees different things, much more. I don't know, Pshat. The Rogatchover says it's obvious. What about it? He says, you know why? Because the Gemara says in Masechtas Zvachim Daf Lamed Aleph Amud Beis that Torah, when you maktir a vorim on the Mizbeach, it doesn't have to be consumed within Kidei Achilas Pras. Right? You have many limbs of a korban. Do you expect that it should be consumed? The Achilas Mizbeach should be within Achilas Pras? Says Rashi, sometimes it takes much longer. So when HaKadosh Baruch Hu says it should be burnt on the altar, he didn't expect it should be the Kizayis B'chtei Achilas Pras. So it's a Mefurish Gemara and the Rambam Paschals that way in Hilchos Psulei HaMukdoshim, that you don't need B'chtei Achilas Pras when it comes to Torah. It's only a din in Achila. Says the Rogatchover Gaon, when a Yid consumes a Korban Pesach, the Bal Misadim mitzvah of Achilas Kochim, it has to have all the halachas and guidelines of Achila. Because there's a mitzvah of Achilas Kochim, it has to be B'chtei Achilas Pras. Aber mitzad the din, the second din, of what of Achilas Pesach, Vibalda Achilas Pesach, its criteria is Torah. You don't need Achilas Pras. It's a gather of Torah. Now, I just want to say, I can't even speak about it, but it's a gewaltige, the editors of this Kerem Shloima brings to our attention a phenomenal pshat of Rav Shimon Sirliov, which is a commentary on Masechta, on the Talmud Yerushalmi in Zroim. So if you have a Talmud Yerushalmi Zroim on the first Mishnah in Brochus, so look at in the Mishnah where it says Hecht chalovim ve'evorim mitzvasan ashayala amud hashacha v'chol ha'ne'echolim liyanecha mitzvasan ashayala amud hashacha, the first Mishnah Masechta Brochus. So the Talmud Yerushalmi, the text reads as follows. It says, what's it called? No, Hecht chalovim ve'evorim mitzvasan ashayala amud hashacha v'achilas psochim v'achilas pesach. So Achilas Pesach is not with V'chol ha'ne'echolim liyanecha. So he asks, what's going on here? Why isn't Pesach, consumption of the Pesach, like the rest? Anyway, he wants to learn that all the Kochim and even Achilas Pesach is regarded like it's included in the Hecht chalovim ve'evorim. You must look at him. He's a gewaltige pshat, and these editors know what they're doing, and they reference this in this tshuva in relation to the Rogatchover. But we're moving. But here we come to the punchline of the Rogatchover. Once we accept to say that the consumption of the Korban Pesach has begun on Torah, now we know in Sefer HaChinuch Mitzvah Kuf Yud Zayin, and we say every day in our Korbanos, it says Kechol Se'or V'chol Dvash Lo Yisaktiru Mimenu Ish Al Hashem. That when we're makter on the Mizbeach, all the Menachas had to be Dafka Matzah and not Chametz, and you can't have any leaven on the Mizbeach, right? You can't have any sweets on the Mizbeach. And the Rambam Paschals in Hilchos Mizbeach that even a kol shu, even the minutest, smallest amount, you're over belav. Yeah, what's going on? The Mela says the Rogatchover, according to this tshuva, that when you're consuming this Korban Pesach, the Baldas begeder Torah as a criteria of Torah, like we just finished discussing, and we says so therefore there's no way you're allowed to eat the chametz together with this Korban Pesach, because the chametz is leaven. Chametz is leaven, that's chametz. And it says just like you can't put chametz on the mizbech with the korban, you can't put chametz in your mouth with the Korban Pesach because it's begeder haktorah. So the law of L'Saktiru B'Meni Yishal Hashem applies in your mouth. And that's the mucker for Rashi, for what Rashi says, that you're not allowed to eat chametz. Because like the Minchas Chinuch says, maybe Rashi means not dafka chametz, even meat, anything else, because it's going to undo. It's reshus and mitzvah, so you're going to undo the taste and the flavor. And like also Tzvi Pesach Frank in the Sefer Mikroi Kodesh says that maybe the problem of the chametz is because it's in contradiction to the matzah, but maybe not big contradiction, it's not in conflict to the korban. No. The Rogatchover says, we mean dafka chametz, and it's in conflict to the korban, and because it's together like Torah, that's the issue of chametz. Now I want to conclude, I'm finishing mamish. We ended the turn of the Rogatchover going. Listen to what this Av Bezin from Atfotsk says, what he doesn't understand what the Rogatchover is saying. He says, please do me a favor and answer me. He has a long tshuva. He has two major shilas. One shaila, he says, what's going on here? The fact is, it says in the halacha that we have to have the koirech. You take the matzah and you take the morer, and the Rambam says you dip the matzah in the charoises. That's what the Rambam says in Hilchos Chametz Matzah, right? So what is the koirech made up? Koirech is made up of, the charoises. Rashi, the Rambam says, matzah and morer, and the matzah you dip into the charoises. What is the charoises made up of? It's made up of all the different peiros in the Shtapcha B'Meretz Yisrael, right? Now he says, the fact is, the halacha is, when it says, K'schol tzar v'chol dvash, lo yisaktiru imenu yishal Hashem, it applies to all types of sweets. The Mishnah Lamelech discusses it. Any sweet fruit, which is, even if it's not honey, so it's incorporated in the law of lo yisaktiru yishal Hashem, there's an isser of aktorah on the mizbeach. So he says, if that's the case, how can you be mekayim the mitzvah of koirech according to the Rambam? You're making a sandwich of the matzah with the morer, you're dipping the matzah in the koirech, then you're eating the korban pesach, and it has sweets, and you what? You mekayim the mitzvah? How do you put it into your mouth? And then he answers it in an interesting way. He says, but maybe the Rambam has no problem, because the Rambam, we mentioned before, mentions the sandwich without the meat. There's no meat mentioned in the Das Rambam. When he speaks about the sandwich, he only mentions the matzah and the morer in the charoises. He doesn't mention about eating it with the korban pesach. The Das Rambam, the korban pesach is not part of the sandwich. So maybe that takes care of that problem. But then he has another major problem, and I'm finishing with it. I know we're going over time. But this, I'm telling you now, this is an extra. And this is just to conclude with. So we really finished the shir, and whoever got to go, please go. And I'm not going over time. It was 15 minutes extra, and that was it. But now this is mamish extra. If you want to stay, stay. Listen to the other shaila the Otvotsker of Bezin has. He's listened to his words. I like his words. They're good. He says, "V'nifleisi ma'oid." I'm mamish surprised and bamboozled. Sheyase pi zor kimizbeach oy kimikoymoi, that he should regard the mouth of a zor, of stamayid, right? Like a mizbeach, you should regard the mouth of a person, a plain guy out there, any Tom, Dick, or Harry, should regard his mouth like a mizbeach, or like the place of the mizbeach. Well, that's exactly what the Rogatchover seems to be wanting to do. He says it's a Torah, like on the mizbeach, so there's a Torah in your mouth, and therefore you can't have the chametz there. Yeah? Mizbeach like a mikoyma. And also, v'zora ichloi, and according to that, if a zor eats and consumes the matzah and the chametz together, the chametz with the korban together, afal kol shu chametz and pesach, he should get malchus, like the Rambam says in Hilchos Yisurim Mizbeach. So that's the one thing he doesn't go for, and he has issues with him, and then he has other shilas, and he concludes, like he says, and he concludes the tshuva, please answer me on all my shilas, it's negeya, and also make sure to respond to my son Avram, etc., in order that he should learn to be mechaviv learn the Torah, etc. And again, I don't know of any other sequence of correspondence after the tshuva. Maybe eventually we'll find them somewhere. But I just want to address this first point. If this, the Bezin of Atfotsk took the Rogatchover literally, and he says the Rogatchover, if he says the korban pesach is like a Torah, so therefore his mouth is like a mizbeach, right? And if his mouth is like a mizbeach, so therefore, so he says, how do you do that? You make a pizar, someone's mouth like a mizbeach or the place of a mizbeach. Now I want to tell you something. I'm not so sure the Rogatchover meant that. You know very well, the Rogatchover is telling us a criteria, a gather. What is the din? What is that? How do you define it halachically? So is this food regarded as plain food consumption? Or kiyum mitzvahs achilas kochim? Or is this food consumption like achilas mizbeach? It has a criteria. It's defined halachically that way. It's a halachic definition. It doesn't have to oblige you to say his mouth becomes a mizbeach. That's what I would say. Unless you want to take him bluntly at face value. I don't think the Rogatchover, you need to say that in the Rogatchover. But I want to give him the benefit of the doubt and say, yes, let's say the Rogatchover may have meant that. And let me tell you, if that's what he meant, it's a mefurish Rav Shulchan Aruch. A mefurish Rav Shulchan Aruch. And we've said this many times, but I'm out of my mind. I'm bamboozled from the Rav Shulchan Aruch. And let me share it with you. And that is as follows. There is a known Sifin Shulchan Aruch, and that is in Siman Kuf Chaf. We mentioned this once before and many times. Gewaldige Shulchan Aruch. It's a tour. The tour on the spot in Erechaim, Shulchan Aruch Erechaim, in the Ritzei. We say Ritzei, V'ishe Yisrael is Vilosem B'yavas Kabel Berotzim. Right? So V'ishe Yisrael is Vilosem. What do we say? Come on, no, I need a sitter. Let me get a sitter. Please? I'm sorry, I say it every day, but I'm a little please excuse me. I'm sure my apologies. So in the Shemini Esrei, what do we say? We read as follows. The Nusach, it differs a little depending on how we'll teach it, but it says, okay, the Chabad Nusach is Nusach HaRili She'eh. Then it says, right? Then it says, so there are many ways of teaching this section. There's one approach, and we say as follows: the Beis should be. We request from Hashem, would say that it should be returned to the Beis Hamikdash, and also the Isha Yisrael, and also the Karbonis. Isha Yisrael means the Karbonis which Eden bring. And then we say, so the Isha Yisrael is connected to V'Hashem Avodah L'Dvar Beisecha. And then we have another, and then we continue saying Usfilosam Tekabel Berotzin, Bahava B'Meheira Tekabel Berotzin, and their tefillis, which we say should be Tekabel Berotzin. Listen to the Rav Shulchan Aruch, please. But this is based on the Tosfos and Menachos. The Torah brings it b'Shem HaMedrash in Siman Kuf Chaf and Erechaim, and quoted in the Tosfos and Menachos in the last daf, in daf Kuf Yud, the Menachos, Amud Aleph, a small Tosfos. Tosfos brings it b'Shem HaMedrash, which is a Zohar, also a Medrash Anela. Maybe that's what Tosfos is referring to. There are two ways of teaching V'isha Yisrael. One teach of V'isha Yisrael means, taka, fiery, what's it called? Fiery animals. They're not literal physical animals. And another type of Isha Yisrael is referring, what's Isha Yisrael? Isha Yisrael is referring to Neshamas HaTzadikim. This is written in this Medrash, quoted in the Tosfos and Menachos and a Tur. Isha Yisrael is Neshamas HaTzadikim. But the Alter Rebbe, you're not going to find what the Alter Rebbe says. I'm letting you know now. You're not going to find it, or many out there may be only learning Mishnah Berurah. So you're not going to find it in Mishnah Berurah. It's not there. Number two, you're not even going to find it here. You get it? The premise of what the Rav says, the Baal HaTanya says, is in the Tur and in the Levush and in the Taz. But the Vilna Gaon says, even though the Taz likes this pshat, I say this pshat doesn't go. I like the other pshat. And the Mishnah Berurah says, yeah, the Taz likes this pshat, but the Gra says he likes that pshat. So there are three ways of learning this text, but the Baal HaTanya likes the pshat the Vilna Gaon doesn't like. He likes the pshat of the Taz, and he likes the pshat brought in the Tosfos. Listen to what he says, but he embellishes it. You're not going to find this pshat anywhere. Listen carefully. He says, V'isha Yisrael, hey neshamis hatzadikim, shemakriv michael ser hagodol ala mizbech shel mayla. That's what Tosfos says. Tosfos says, yes, Isha Yisrael means, yes, it doesn't mean the karbonis Yidden bring. Isha Yisrael means the karbonis, the Yidden are the carbon. Yidden. The neshamis of the tzaddikim, they are the karbonos. Aber Baruch Hashem, they have a riches yomim, right? What does it mean? It means after their oil l'mayla. So what? So the Malach Michael, Sar HaGodol, Sar, not Sar HaTeha, Sar HaGodol. Yeah, he's the Sar HaGodol, right? He's the Sar, he's the mighty Sar, the greatest ministering angel of all the angels, Michael, yeah? So Malach Shel Chesed. He is makriv these neshamas on the Mizbeach Shel Mayla. On the Mizbeach Shel Mayla. And like Rabbi Shaya Pik in Masechta Menachos Daf Kuf Yud references a Gemara in Masechta Chagiga Daf Yud Beis Amud Beis. It's there in the Yankov. In the Yankov he quotes that lashon that we're talking about. Yes, Isha Yisrael means that the Gemara says that Malach Michael is makriv in the Neshama Shel Tzadikim on the Mizbeach Shel Mayla. That's the meaning of Isha Yisrael. Meaning the Yisrael are the Ishim. The Yisrael are the Ishim. They are the Karbonos. Now, the Baal HaTanya adds, listen carefully. Ulamato, down here on this earth, These are the korbanos with tzaddikim and makriv. I didn't quote it in the book. I should have quoted it in the paper. They're moiser nefesh. That's a korban, right? You're moiser nefesh. Like you bring the actual korban. So the tzaddikim, we're talking about true tzaddikim. Alavai, we should know who they are, right? Listen. Al kol dibor v'dibor hayotzei mipihem. You know what that means? When a tzaddik davens and he cries out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's called their moiser nafsho. To HaKadosh Baruch Hu on every word they express. Hayotzei mipihem hamechune b'shem mizbeach. Hamechune b'shem mizbeach. Their mouths are mechune, are touched, or translated, or interpreted, is meant like a mizbeach. Their mouths of the tzaddikim are a mizbeach. Yeah, that's why in many drushim of the Balatanya he explains that the achilas at tzaddikim is like achilas ha-mizbeach. I'm talking about the real tzaddikim. I'm not going there because I don't want to say the wrong thing. But b'chol emes a great tzaddikim to even yidnu har moiser nefesh, you know. So the Balatanya says mefurish that their mouths are mechune b'shem mizbeach. So what's the pele from this Ambezn of Atvotsk that the Rogatchover says in the signal of halacha that he regards the mouth of the zor as a mizbeach or mokam ha-mizbeach? It's a mefurish psak halacha. It's a mefurish pshat and toisvus. That's the meaning. That's the meaning of Ishi Yisrael. And then it says ba'ava. What is ba'ava? It's ba'ava. Rabba haba aleim al ma'la de michal tzara chesed v'zui tefillah nikra aveda shebelev. The karbonos is one of the karbanos which they do with great excitement. Be'eshes lavos, the krois ishi yisrael tefillosam is the actual words of the tefillah. Please take out a Balatanya, a Rav Shulchan Aruch Hilchos Tefillah. Remarkable words. Siman Kuf Chaf Siv Beis. I'll tell you what's most remarkable. And this is, I'm concluding with this to end on a nice, happy note. Would you believe that Dafke, one of the Meforshei Ho in Yankiv, every year has a Yankiv at house, brings verbatim this Balatanya. They quote it in the Pirush in Yankiv. Take out of your Yankiv and Masechta Chagigi Yud Beis Amud Beis. And because the words of the Alter Rebbe are mamish so fascinating, right? Like I said, you're not going to find them, this definition in the Torah, in the Tosfos. This is a definition of the Torah, the Tosfos and the Taz. So the Anaf Yosef quotes this Balatanya word and word, verbatim. Guess what? You know what he says? Listen to this. And I was stunned. You know what he says? Listen to what he says. He calls him Zalman Schneier. Zalman Schneier? Guess what? You know what his name was? His name was, I'll tell you, I'll look at the opening the page, the thing page. His name was, what was his name? Let me tell you what his name is. His name is, if I'm not mistaken, I'll tell you in a minute. His name is Chanoich Zundel B'Rabbi Yosef. Now, what can you expect from a Chanoich Zundel? To know that the Balatanya's name is Schneier Zalman? You know where that Chanoich Zundel's name is coming from. You know where it comes from. I believe it's coming from the Bali Musar, etc., from Lithuania. Nevertheless, he was such a person who has a name Chanoich Zundel, who even though he doesn't even know the Alter Rebbe's name straight, Schneier Zalman, he calls him Zalman Schneier, like a Menshi Schneier, right? He calls him Zalman Schneier. Nevertheless, he found it important to cut and paste the words of the Balatanya in his Pshat, Anaf Yosef on the Ein Yankiv, because the Pshat is remarkable. So even our Reb Chanoich Zundel sees the haflaw of the Balatanya's Pshat in this Tosfos and in the what? In the Tosfos and in the Tur. And that's why I'm saying it's something special. So therefore, even if one will accept the words of the Rogatchover that with making the Pi Zorkim Mizbeach, yes, the Pi Tzadik is Takim Bechune B'Shem Mizbeach. And with this we conclude, even though the Vilna Gaon says that he likes the last Pirush, the Balatanya likes the middle Pirush, that's what the Taz likes, and even Reb Chanoich Zundel likes it too. Have a wonderful night. L'chaim v'levrocha. Thanks for coming. Give tzedakah every hour on the hour and protect the Klal Yisrael. And whatever we have to attain without tzedakah, Kodesh Baruch Hu should bring refuah shlema for the ill. Kodesh Baruch Hu should bring aliyas haneshama for those who need aliyas haneshama. Kodesh Baruch Hu should protect Alma Yisrael. Ay, it's a schön Zeit. We should be Tag Hashem gives us a second chance. So we had already, okay. More than a second chance. Give us, we gave, it's finished. Up, it's all over. Kodesh Baruch Hu should be the Barim of Am Yisrael. L'chaim v'levrocha b'suras toves. Have a wonderful night. Manchi Shnai, thanks for hosting this meeting. Everybody, thanks for coming, and thanks for having me. Good night. L'chaim v'levrach.